Tourism trouble brewing as tariff tensions boil over between the United States and Canada.
But with that tariff war continuing, new data shows Canadians are boycotting travel to the United States.
Canadian airlines are taking away flights to popular U.S. cities. This after many Canadian vacationers apparently are avoiding the U.S.
Foreign tourists are turning their backs on America, and boycotts are hitting hard, potentially costing the nation a jaw-dropping $90 billion this year alone. What's driving this unprecedented pullback? And what does it mean for businesses, jobs, and everyday Americans? Tourism has long been a powerhouse for the U.S. economy. In 2024, international visitors pumped a record $254 billion into the country, supporting millions of jobs from hotel workers to taxi drivers. But fast forward to 2025, and the picture is starkly different. According to Goldman Sachs, a combination of reduced travel and global boycotts could shave 0.3% off the U.S. GDP, translating to nearly $90 billion in losses. That's not just a number, it's a crisis affecting real people and communities. So, what's behind this dramatic shift? It starts with a steep drop in international visitors. Data from the International Trade Administration shows that arrivals of non-citizens by plane plummeted nearly 10% in March 2025 compared to last year. And it's not just one region. Canadians, Europeans, and travelers from Asia, Africa, and beyond are staying away. The National Travel and Tourism Office reports a 17% drop from Western Europe, 26% from the Caribbean, and even an 8% decline from Oceania. This isn't a blip, it's a global trend. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room: politics. Many sources point to President Donald Trump's policies as a key driver of this tourism collapse. His aggressive trade tariffs, particularly against allies like Canada and China, have sparked outrage. Canadians, who make up the largest group of foreign visitors to the U.S., are leading the charge. After Trump's tariffs and comments mocking Canada as America's 51st state, Canadian travel to the U.S. dropped 12% in California alone in February 2025. Some reports even cite a 70% plunge in Canadian flight reservations for the summer tourist season. That sentiment is echoed across Canada, where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has encouraged citizens to buy Canadian, fueling a boycott of American products and travel. Social media is buzzing with hashtags like Boycott USA, and travel agencies report cancellations en masse. Vancouver's travel group says future bookings are down 90%, while Ottawa-based Travac Tours has canceled all U.S. trips through July. This isn't just a vacation trend, it's a deliberate economic protest. But it's not just Canada. Across the Atlantic, Europeans are joining the boycott. In Denmark, shoppers are shunning U.S. goods, with activists using apps and social media groups, some with 90,000 members, to promote local alternatives. This backlash stems from Trump's trade policies, including tensions over Greenland and a broader perception of hostility at U.S. borders. Reports of European tourists being detained for weeks in immigration centers aren't helping. The message is clear: many feel unwelcome in America. Let's talk numbers. The U.S. Travel Association warns that even a 10% drop in Canadian tourism could cost $2.1 billion and 140,000 jobs. Scale that up to a 30% decline, and we're looking at billions more in losses. Retail spending from international visitors, which Bloomberg estimates at $20 billion, is also at risk. Hotels, restaurants, and small businesses are feeling the pinch. In California, the top U.S. travel destination, international visitors spent $26.5 billion in 2024. Now, with a 12% drop in Canadian visitors alone, that revenue is evaporating. Stories like this are popping up nationwide. And it's not just tourism. Boycotts of American products like wines in Canada or spices in Europe are adding to the economic strain. In Montreal, shelves at liquor stores are empty where U.S.-made wines once stood. This is a multi-front economic hit, and it's raising fears of a broader recession. But not everyone's taking this lying down. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom has launched a bold counteroffensive with a viral tourism campaign called California Love. It's a direct response to the Canadian boycott, aiming to lure back international visitors with promises of a welcoming, vibrant destination. The campaign's gaining traction, but can it stem the tide of a $90 billion loss? That's a tall order. Newsom's campaign is a reminder that tourism is more than dollars. It's about cultural exchange and global perception. U.S. destinations are fighting back, with marketers emphasizing that America is open to all, regardless of politics. But with travel advisories warning of stricter border controls and a growing sense of unease, rebuilding trust won't be easy. On platforms like X, the conversation is heated. Users are sharing articles from the Daily Beast and Bloomberg, with some blaming Trump's policies for the economic fallout. One post put it bluntly, Goldman Sachs says we'll lose $90 billion because of the fat orange guy's policies. So much winning. Others argue the boycotts are an overreaction, but the data speaks for itself. This is a story resonating far beyond U.S. borders. So, where do we go from here? The U.S. tourism industry, which supports 15 million jobs and contributes 2.5% to GDP, is at a crossroads. Some, like U.S. Toei President Terry Dale, stress that this isn't about politics. It's about protecting an industry that touches every corner of the country. Others, like analysts at Tourism Economics, predict a $64 billion loss in 2025, with social and economic ripple effects we can't yet measure. As travelers, we have the power to shape this story. Whether you're an American supporting local businesses or an international visitor weighing a U.S. trip, your choices matter. The U.S. is still home to incredible destinations, but it's facing a perception problem. Can it reclaim its status as a global tourism leader? That depends on policy, diplomacy, and how we treat each other.
I said that the United States' tariff measures are deeply regrettable regarding the impact on Japanese investment and hiring, both in Japan and in the United States, strongly requested that the U.S. review its series of tariff measures.
Is the future of Japan-U.S. trade relations hanging by a thread? Shocking developments have unfolded in Washington as Japan's economic revitalization minister Ryosei Akazawa embarks on a mission to recalibrate tariff tensions with the United States. With the shadow of past trade wars looming, can this meeting between two economic powerhouses break new ground, or are we witnessing the prelude to an unprecedented trade meltdown? On April 16, 2025, in a move drawing global attention, Akazawa arrived in Washington, setting the stage for much-anticipated negotiations with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. This high-stakes summit unexpectedly featured a surprise appearance by none other than U.S. President Donald Trump. As Trump labeled the meeting "big progress" in a post on social media, observers were left to ponder, what progress could this mean for Japan and its economy? With Trump's administration previously imposing a 24% tariff on Japanese imports, temporarily suspended for 90 days amid financial market turmoil, Japan remains encumbered by a 10% baseline tariff and a staggering 25% on cars, auto parts, steel, and aluminum exports to the U.S. The stakes are no small matter. For a nation like Japan, where the automotive industry represents nearly 30% of its export value to the U.S., the concern is profound. Akazawa wasted no time, urging the U.S. to reconsider these punitive tariffs. Despite this appeal, Trump and his team held firm, seeking to end the $68.5 billion trade imbalance with Japan and push for greater access to Japanese markets for American products. Moreover, Trump's meeting wasn't solely fixated on tariffs. In what seemed an unexpected turn, the bilateral security treaty took center stage. Notorious for his criticism of post-World War II security arrangements, Trump reaffirmed his position, demanding Japan increase its defense budget, a condition sources suggest aims at sustaining U.S. forces in Japan. Despite the negotiations' whirlwind of various agendas, Akazawa clarified no discussion happened regarding currency exchange rates, initially anticipated to be on the agenda by Secretary Bessent. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's emphatic stance on the negotiations has left no room for doubt. No compromises will be made to hastily resolve this trade dilemma. As Akazawa navigated the diplomatic waters, Japan braced for potential impacts. The Japanese government set up a special task force to assess tariff repercussions and offer financial assistance to companies. Trump's claim that Japan imposes a 700% tariff on rice further complicated matters, a statement Japanese Farm Minister Taku Eto dismissed as incomprehensible. As Japan endeavors to defend its commercial interests, the United States challenges the crippling tariff regime in a bid to sway the global economic balance. The U.S. emerged as the largest importer of Japanese agricultural products last year, topping 20-year records, further complicating the already jittery trade relations. Amidst all these high-stakes discussions, Akazawa and U.S. officials agreed to reconvene for another round of talks later in April, keeping the world in suspense. The implications of these talks echo far beyond border lines. Any resolution or lack thereof holds the power to influence global supply chains, affect international trade agreements, and alter geopolitical alliances. As both nations tread the narrow line between cooperation and conflict, the world waits with bated breath. In conclusion, as the drama unfolds, questions loom large over what's at stake. Can Japan survive under the weight of these tariffs, or will the U.S. attain an advantageous position in this intricate dance of diplomacy? As the world's eyes turn to the impending talks, all stakeholders brace for what could be a defining moment in international trade relations. What do you think lies ahead for Japan-U.S. relations in light of these developments?
The lawsuit filed today argues that President Donald Trump lacks the authority to enact such sweeping tariffs. This is the state's 15th lawsuit against the Trump administration since he took office in January.
Shockwaves are reverberating across California's political and economic landscape. In an unprecedented showdown, Governor Gavin Newsom and Attorney General Rob Bonta have launched a high-stakes legal assault against President Donald Trump's latest wave of tariffs, setting the stage for a fierce coast-to-coast power struggle. Is this a battle to defend a state's survival or political theater in a national crisis? As of April 16, 2025, California has become the very first state to sue the Trump administration over sweeping tariffs recently hammered on most of America's major trading partners. Speaking from the heart of the Central Valley, among the almond orchards that feed the world, Governor Newsom issued a stark warning. No state is poised to lose more than the state of California. The lawsuit, unveiled with both urgency and drama, targets Trump's invocation of the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, or IEEPA, as the legal backbone for imposing tariffs, without any green light from Congress. To understand the sheer scale of this conflict, let's talk numbers and livelihoods. California is an economic juggernaut with nearly $675 billion in two-way trade in the last year alone. Its top trading partners, Mexico, Canada, and China, represent critical lifelines for local businesses and farms. According to Newsom, 43% of California's almonds, pistachios, and dairy products are export-dependent, and this storm of tariffs isn't just paperwork, it's an existential threat. The governor didn't mince words. President Trump's unlawful tariffs are wreaking chaos on California families, businesses, and our economy, driving up prices and threatening jobs. So what exactly is California up against? Since early April 2025, President Trump has deployed the IEEPA to roll out a baseline 10% tariff on all imported goods, cranked up taxes on imports from Mexico, Canada, and China, and hit autos and aluminum with even steeper levies. These actions have set industries on edge and pushed prices higher for everyday consumers. Polling tells a story of national unease. A CBS survey finds that 58% of Americans oppose these tariffs. Yet the White House remains defiant, with spokesman Kush Desai firing back. Instead of focusing on California's rampant crime, Gavin Newsom is spending his time trying to block President Trump's historic efforts. Key to the lawsuit is the argument over the limits of presidential power. Newsom and Bonta claim the IEEPA was never designed to let the president slap sweeping taxes on imports without Congress. Attorney General Bonta underscores the urgency, declaring, "The gravity and instability of the situation at hand cannot be overstated." The legal complaint filed in the U.S. District Court for Northern California demands the immediate voiding of Trump's tariff orders. Their core allegation? That President Trump has been inventing bogus national emergencies to bypass the constitutional role of Congress, seizing power never granted to the executive. He is betraying people that supported him. Donald Trump has turned his back on his supporters, Newsom charged, painting the president's move as nothing less than an act of political abandon. But this is more than a legal parsing of statutes. What's at stake is the fate of California's vast export economy, where nearly half the crop, dairy, and manufacturing output heads overseas. The uncertainty looming over farmers, small business owners, and workers is profound. California's attorneys argue the tariffs are more than unlawful. They are a clear and present danger to the pronounced and profound economic well-being of the state. Yet the power struggle is hardly one-sided. Supporters of Trump's tariffs argue drastic action is needed to protect American industries and spur domestic reinvestment, seeing the president's move as a needed stand against decades of lopsided trade deals. Critics, however, are sounding alarms over the chaos and pain inflicted on states that count on open trade. As the lawsuit ripples through federal court, the entire country is left watching. Is this the beginning of a sweeping revision of presidential power over U.S. trade, or just another round in a bitter red versus blue battle? Governor Newsom's suit marks the 14th, some say 15th time, California has led the charge against the Trump administration since his return to office. But never before has the financial future of so many hung so precariously in the balance. Where do you stand on this clash of titans? Is this courageous state leadership fighting for the people, or obstruction standing in the way of America's future?
bottlenecks in the world's supply chains. Shipping containers and unloaded ships are jamming up ports
because the ships transporting them have nowhere to go.
America's economy is grinding to a halt, and this time, it's not because of a pandemic or a housing collapse. It's something far more structural and self-inflicted. As of April 2025, over 2.3 million shipping containers are stuck at U.S. ports, stretching from Los Angeles to Savannah, triggering the worst logistics bottleneck since the COVID-era crisis of 2021. The cause? A full-blown trade retaliation from Beijing. In March, the Chinese government ordered a freeze on all American-bound Boeing aircraft, suspended bulk orders of U.S. pharmaceuticals, halted imports of semiconductor equipment, and publicly redirected its global contracts toward Europe and Asia. This isn't just another tit for tat. It's a global economic repositioning. China's action comes in direct response to President Trump's escalation of tariffs, raising duties on Chinese tech, medicine, and textiles from 25% to 50%. And history tells us we've been down this road before. Back in 2018, Trump's original steel and aluminum tariffs spurred short-term steel profits, but ultimately cost over 300,000 jobs in downstream sectors, according to the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Now, in 2025, the fallout is broader and deeper. Consumer electronics prices jumped 12.4% in Q1, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In 14 states, major pharmacies report 6 to 8 week delays on life-saving antibiotics, including amoxicillin, azithromycin, and cefuroxime. Over 80% of active pharmaceutical ingredients in the U.S. are sourced from China or India, and supply chain disruptions are beginning to show on pharmacy shelves and hospital inventories. Meanwhile, the corporate response has been swift and brutal. Walmart canceled $423 million in merchandise orders last month. Apple has lost $300 billion in market value as iPhone assembly delays mount due to component bottlenecks in Shenzhen. General Motors and Intel, rather than bringing production home, are shifting operations to Vietnam and Indonesia, where trade pressure is lower and costs are more predictable. At the epicenter of the crisis sits Boeing. The aerospace giant has watched as its stock plummeted 28% in 3 weeks, and up to 14,000 jobs across Missouri, Washington, and South Carolina are now at risk. What was once America's proudest export brand is now facing mass cancellations and production cuts. Analysts at Bernstein Research expect a 30% reduction in 737 MAX production by Q4 if the freeze continues. Wall Street is flashing red. JP Morgan warns of a 60% chance of global recession by year-end. The Atlanta Federal Reserve cut its GDP growth forecast to 2.7% for Q3 2025, compared to a positive 1.3% just 3 months earlier. Over $700 billion in pension fund assets are now exposed in at-risk manufacturing and energy stocks, according to data from BlackRock and Fidelity. But the damage is no longer just economic, it's geopolitical. In April, China finalized a $68 billion logistics and infrastructure deal with India and the UAE, settled entirely in yuan. It also signed a long-term procurement deal with Airbus, a move that cuts Boeing out of China's civil aviation future and reinforces Beijing's decoupling strategy. These aren't retaliations, they are structural reorientations away from the U.S. And still, the Trump administration insists everything is going according to plan. During a press briefing last week, President Trump praised the tariffs as working beautifully. Yet since January, U.S. manufacturing employment has shrunk by 168,000 jobs, and consumer sentiment has fallen to a 20-month low, according to the University of Michigan's latest index. Beyond the economic pain, national security risks are escalating. Over 74% of U.S. rare earth mineral imports, essential for electric vehicles, missile guidance, and defense systems, still come from China. In March, Beijing announced stricter export controls on neodymium and dysprosium. Lockheed Martin and Raytheon have already issued internal warnings that next-gen fighter jet and satellite programs may face delays. The human toll is mounting. In Everett, Washington, Boeing's layoffs have cut local business revenue by 15%, leaving shops and diners struggling. In Ohio and Michigan, food banks report a 20% spike in demand as families face job losses and rising prices. Geopolitically, China's yuan-based deals and African mineral investments signal a bid to reshape trade. The EU, projecting a 1% GDP hit by 2026, per the European Central Bank, is turning to Airbus and Asian markets. At home, Pew Research shows 58% of voters oppose tariffs, with Iowa farmers hit by a 15% export drop. China's mineral curbs have raised EV battery costs 22%, per the International Energy Agency, threatening green goals. Apple's production lead times are now exceeding 60 days. GM's battery plants report shortages of cathode material. Analysts say we could see up to $220 billion in manufacturing output lost in 2025 if the trade war continues unchecked. And if there's no clear long-term strategy, this tariff war won't just bring down our rivals. It could be killing America from the inside. But this is only the beginning.